just because you did something or you sponsored something 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago, especially in Northwest Arkansas, doesn't mean that everybody knows today. We were caught in that rut. We've been here for 78 years, iconic of our stores right there on College, helping everybody out. And we would go to races up in Bentonville or Rogers, and these long races, hey, where do you work? Where do you live? What do you do? And the amount of people be like, well, where's Lewis located at? What do y'all do?
Hey everyone, welcome to Crossroad Conversations with the Lewis Brothers, where we aim to share real stories about running a successful family business while working through adversity and pouring back into our community that keeps our doors open every single day. We're your hosts, Shelby, Matt, and Taylor, and we'll be bringing you real, relevant local business advice, maybe some automotive insights that are sure to change the way you look at running a business or buying a car, and maybe even throw in a plug for you to do business with us here locally.
Welcome to Crossroads Conversation. Hey, episode 22, and today's going to be a good one. Why? Because we're going under the hood. Why community roots drive success. We love talking about this. Hey, we got 78 years worth and 4 generations of locally owned and operated. That's what we'll dive into today, and the importance of not only a local business, but a family-owned business, what that does for employee retention, what it does for long-term success, and how it also benefits the local community, not only growing, but through sponsorships and charity organizations, so on and so forth. But before we do that, Taylor, we got to rewind the tape a little bit. Tell them what they missed last week if they didn't listen.
Hey, it was pretty in-depth, but it was a fun conversation. It was working for the money or working for the job. And more times than not, that gets lost, but you got to dive back into the previous episode there. It's working for the money or working for the job that you love there. Hey, make sure you're checking us out there at lewissuperstore.com. Shelby, what did we drive today?
What did we drive today? Today we pulled out the old Warlock.
The Warlock. You know what I love about the Warlock? Now, it's a Ram 1500. It's a very, let me say, high demand package they put. Here's what I like about the Warlock. It's got everything you need. It looks good, it performs good, and it's at a great value.
Yes.
What we're talking about here is a crew cab 4-wheel drive truck with over 400 horsepower, under 50 grand. All right, and it takes all the stuff from the Rebel, so it's got a factory lift on it. It's got Kevlar Goodyear tires on it. It's got all-weather mats. It's got an 8.4 touch screen. It's got the big motor, the new straight 6 turbo. It also has all the skid plates, locking rear differential, everything you need for a great value price. Plus, it looks good.
Go ahead and sell it to me, why don't you?
It's a Warhawk lock.
It's a good value. It's a good truck. It's a package that's been around that they constantly look at to make sure that it makes sense, that it has all the fun things without being too expensive. So
that's right.
That was a fun one to drive in today to make sure that it makes sense. As we transition in today, the importance of being locally owned and being in the community. Now, one of the things that we will always say is locally owned and locally operated. And that's not just operating within our store, it's operating within the community. And so, it's dollar earned, dollar spent, dollar given back. And so that's kind of the full circle of how that goes. So we'll fully break that down and what makes sense and the difference of what you might think a local company is and how that dollar equates. And so what's your thoughts on that, of importance of being locally owned and being in the community?
I think you've got to put a hat on of where are you looking? Are you short-term or are you long-term? And when you start thinking long-term, and if you were in a strategy meeting with us, we would talk a lot about this. We're not here to earn a quick buck today. We're in the long-term business. And what I mean by long-term business in our case is, hey, we want to be here when you're ready to buy your next vehicle and your next vehicle. And sometimes we even talk about it generational. We want to sell your grandparents, you and your kids something.
Yes.
You do that by long-term relationships. And you get those long-term relationships by long-term employees, by being locally owned, and by supporting things that are of interest to them as well. And I know we're going to dive into each one of those. One of our sayings that I really like this saying that we came up with a few years back, we were talking about it, is, Lewis is on the building, the name Lewis, but you also find a Lewis in the store. And why that's important, and I'm sure you guys would agree, is, hey, we deal with people. We deal with people. Something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. Somebody's going to drop the ball, or something's going to break, or something's not going to work. And we're there to help find a solution with the customer. And they realize that these are human-built vehicles. Something could go wrong, but we're there along the ride with them to help them out. You won't find that in a nationally owned business. Even if the store's local, they'll have to submit a form up to New York or some other big city just to be able to get an exception. We're in the store, we read the situations, listen to what's going on, and then we figure out a solution. If it makes sense, we do it.
I think where that's relevant, and a lot of people are nearsighted, right? When it comes to purchasing something or servicing something, and I'm a value-minded person, but I know when it's something that I'm really counting on, like transportation or like, a flight to get somewhere or a place to stay, that's a time where it kind of makes sense that we shouldn't be just as crazy value-minded. Now, don't throw it out the window. I'm not going to go way out of bounds.
Sure.
But that's one of those things. And so our 78 years worth of business, we've built this repeat and a fro to realize now we're going to be very competitive in price and we're going to be well within market, and our experience is going to be well beyond.
Sure.
But if someone doesn't know us, then they're like, eh. But then if they do get the opportunity to transact with us, they realize we're not a 1-800 number. It's not a thing. Almost majority of everyone's phone is connected to their cell phone. Now we tell the people like, hey, when it's your time off, it's your time off. But you ever got an after hours phone call?
Absolutely.
And so there's a time when it's like, oh my gosh. But there's been plenty of times when we say, hey, hang on, let me see if I can get something figured out for you.
You bet.
Hang on, let me see if I can get a tow truck for you. Or hang on. That's the difference of your big box chain. You think all warm and fuzzy and shiny until you really need some boots on the ground. You're not sitting there pressing 0 on the phone trying to get a hold of a person.
Yeah, and I think circling back into, y'all kind of both already hit on it, but being local, being in the dealership, we're in it, we hear what's going on. We'll transition over to being in the community. We're not one that goes, and Matt does a better job of any of us of being able to be involved with, of chamber and anything else there. But we're not one that's going to go out and be in the middle of it, but we always have our ears turned on. So whenever we're out in the community, we always hear of events or anything else, and I won't go too far into the next one of everything we do, but that's the only way that you're able to really take that dollar and make it make the most sense, because we're not just writing a donation check. We're putting a whole plan in place that we really love being a part of all of it. So that's the only way you can do it, both in business as well as in the community, is having your ears open and being on the ground.
No, I would agree with that. And I found this image I want to share with you guys, and then I want to get your take on it. This study was done by University of Michigan. They did this on small local business owners.
Michigan.
You did, not this one, but a different one. Okay.
Never mind.
So this pie chart, not this graph, this pie chart shows if you spend $100 locally. Okay. Now both scenarios are local.
Okay.
One's with a locally owned business, and then the other one is locally but a nationally owned business. Remember, like somebody in Chicago owns it.
Yep.
Okay, so that would be like a brand that you see that's locally, physically owned, that you can walk in.
Yes.
So we're talking about like a Circuit City, Best Buy.
Something like that, yeah, like an Academy, something like that, like a large box store, like a Dillard's or something like that.
Okay.
It's still local, and you got local people. And that's still more of that money stays local than if you just buy online and it gets shipped to you, okay? And there's a place for all of those businesses. But what we want to talk about, we want to break down $100 and how much of it stays local in a locally owned business versus a non-locally owned business, okay? Both are still local. All right, so your $100, if you're in a non-locally owned business, but it's here, of that $100, only $43 stays. Okay, only $43 stays. $57 leaves the local economy. That means nobody benefits from it. It doesn't help any improvements in the area. It doesn't help any charities. Doesn't help any income. Doesn't help any employees. Anything. 57% of it's gone.
$57 of that 100.
Of the 100 is gone. Northwest Arkansas won't see it anymore.
Okay.
If you're a locally owned business, on average, if $100 is spent, $73 stays local.
So that's $30 more per 100.
That's huge.
That's 30, and we're just talking about $100. That's 30%. So 73, all right, only 27 leaves, okay? And everybody has part of it that leaves. So don't say, hey, I want 100%. You got to pay federal taxes, and you got to do, I mean, there's stuff that leaves. So when you start thinking about that, that's almost twice, you said it, almost twice more that stays local to support growth locally if you do business with a local owned place.
And a lot of people can't, once again, I'll talk about nearsighted. They won't fully look at that, but it comes in full circle. And we'll break that down a little bit of talking about some events of how we get to give back to that. But it is a wide plethora. So you think the nearsightedness, I don't care, but like, I think you do. Like, I think somewhere in there you do, even if you're you just moved here and you don't have roots and you hadn't met some people, somewhere you have been part of a local, thinking of where you're shopping for your clothes or where you're somewhere it goes back into that affects where, your kids go to school and able to help with the fundraiser or charity, or your law enforcement of a shop with a cop thing, or the track, or the bike club, or the football field. There are hundreds and thousands of different elements of where that dollar goes back and helps out.
And I think depending upon what stage you are in life, because we've all been there, and we've been a local-owned business for a long time. But I can tell you when I'm in high school, I'm going into college, and I only got $5 in my bank account. You know what I mean? I mean, you're squeezing for everything. It was more of a survival mode. Yeah. But then once you get into your career, or if you have parents or generations that have taught you, you start seeing that different. Yeah. And like you said, you're still thrifty. You're not just throwing it out the window. Like, it's got to be competitive. Yeah. And we talk about that in our pricing. Like, we won't be the cheapest out there, but we're going to be highly competitive.
And that's the same thing, like, the guy that talked about, hey, I didn't know you had mobile oil change, that we would come to you and change oil. He was going to the big box on the corner, and they were 1.5 times more expensive than what we were. So we work extremely hard to make sure our pricing is proper. Most people just completely miss that.
Yes.
Because they just think with new building, like, hey, that looks expensive.
Yes.
And while the building was, our product is still right in line.
Yep.
You don't think that about Walmart. Like, hey, that's a huge building. I bet their prices are higher than the kite. No, they got to make sure their product's on the money.
Hey, the other thing, and we were talking about this yesterday in our board meeting, so I'm going to bring it up, is we were interviewing a new employee to come on our team. Yep. And one of the candidates' questions was, when's the last time y'all did layoffs? Not when you let somebody go or fired somebody, because they had come from the corporate world. And so, when's the last time y'all did layoffs? We said, we've never done a layoff.
Never.
I think that's a common theme. I'm going to speak for the other locally owned businesses here. You very rarely hear of a local or small business doing a layoff. Now, will they let somebody go that's underperforming? Yeah, that's a different subject.
Yes.
Completely different.
Okay, but layoffs? And we forget, because we're in the small business locally owned, is there's that fear. If you work for somebody that's a national company and it's just numbers, you hear about it in the news all the time of, hey, 500 people or 1,000 people got laid off. So from the employee side, there's some benefits and some value. And if you were behind closed doors with us and we were talking about, an employee or even an area maybe that was underperforming, maybe we needed to close down that area. We would say, okay, we've got these 3 employees, these 4 employees there. They're good employees. Where can we move them within the company?
That's a constant thing. We talk about that in certain departments, and we're like, hey, because we're measuring that, right? Expenses can get out of control. 264 employees, it can get out of control. So we're like, hey, where's the repurposer? What else is that person capable of that we can use them for? So their A, primary job, their B, their secondary job, and their C, hey, if they've already hit A and B, that we can use them here. Because if you've already got somebody that shows up, that has a good attitude, who's willing to be a good team player, find a spot for them. But I don't think we've ever let 2 people go at the same time for the same reason.
No. I mean, not that I know of in my career or any of any of the stories we've talked about. So I think from the flip side of it, you nailed it there. It's like, hey, the retention, and I don't have the exact numbers, but when you look at the average time of employment on a nationally owned or corporation, let's say that, a national corporation versus a locally owned business, you're at a 2 to 3x at minimum. Of tenure that they stay there. In our business, and I know we'll get deeper here in a minute on that, but in our business, that equals more customers. That also equals more repeat customers because they're dealing with the same employee that they've already built the trust with.
It's the same reason you go to the local, the coffee shop, your favorite gas station. You know them. It's not awkward. It's just like Cheers. You want to go where everybody knows your name.
I'm glad you bring that up, and I know some of our audience won't know what Cheers is, but the rest of them, the show Cheers. They probably didn't have the best food. Their experience. Their beer that was on tap there was at the same at the place down there. But when they walked in, everybody hollered their name. And they felt a part of something.
I mean, Ken Dunk's walking in and I'm hollering at him. Ken Dunk!
I know. It's those small things, though. You get that from a local business. You walk in an academy, you think somebody says, "Hey, Shelby, you going back to the hunting department today?"
Not unless it's one of our workers there as well. They're hollering at me. So that, there is a whole lot of being locally owned and being in the community, and we'll cut that up a little bit more. But I got to hit us with the fun fact quiz of the week.
Okay, let's get it.
So fun fact quiz of the week. When was Fayetteville, Arkansas, where we're located, started in 1946. When was it incorporated, I assume, as a town? So I'm going to give you 4 options.
Okay.
So you can't be wrong. You could be wrong, but you'll know what you're guessing. A, 1906.
Okay.
B, 1836.
Okay.
C, 1872. Or D, 1893.
Okay, I'm not going to guess right now, and I know this is, and we're not supposed to discuss this, but I got to do a plug here. I can narrow one of them out just because of the picture I've seen in our management office of Lewis Brothers Hardware, and when it was established on the downtown square in Fayetteville.
Yeah, when was that?
That was in the late 1800s.
Okay, so A is out the window.
A's out the window.
This is just, I'm good at this. We're 33%.
And I'm just putting a little value there with talking about family business. We talk about 78 years in the car business. It's been over 100 plus years family-wise.
So 1836 is B, C is 1872, or D is 1893. We'll circle back around to that, so be thinking about your guesses.
You bet. Well, so we started off, Shelby, and you were kind of talking a general overview, and we were kind of firing each way of like, was it employees? Was it retention? Was it pricing? How much money stays in the community? Or what do your sponsorships look like? Let's take a little bit deeper dive in engagement into the community. One of the things we talk about, and we have an entire marketing team and the entire events department too. We talk about it's really important to us that we not only write a check to sponsor and to help out, but we have boots on the ground as well. That's important to us. It's not just because we're blessed to be able to financially help, but we want to help being there, shaking hands, handing out stuff. Let's go through some examples there and your thoughts.
That's one of the most important things, is not just mailing a check. I must say one of the first that I see is around Christmas time.
Okay.
We had a bunch of police officers coming in. We had to make sure that, no one was getting arrested. But it was great. There's a bunch of resource officers from all different departments, and it's their Shop with a Cop program.
I love that.
And that's always fun talking to them as much as we can and saying, okay, how many students and how many. So they all have a different program and how many people they help and how they help. But they're able to take X amount of students and they work with these schools to see, hey, who doesn't have what they need for Christmas? And so we make pretty large donations to all these different local police departments to be able to them help out. It's a really cool thing. There's kind of a zero recognition thing, and that's A-okay, right? This is not advertising that we're doing. This is helping out in the community. So we get to empower them to then go love on and help these local young minds. And they take them shopping. It's so much fun hearing their stories. They take them shopping, and they get to all right, here's $150 per kid. And they're like, man, if we've got one that needs a little more here, they'll get, and that's just cool.
I think that's one of those cases. I agree with you. We're not telling them to splatter our name everywhere. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And in my mind, the reason that one's so special to us is not only it covers a couple things, it allows kids that aren't going to have anything under the Christmas tree or maybe even a new coat. It allows them to get that. Okay. And then number two, it allows them to start a relationship with police officers. They may have come from a home where they were talked about that police officers are not your friend. They're not here to protect them. That's the farthest from the truth.
Yeah, they just watch cops too much. You know?
That's what they
get the bad rap, you know?
And which is not the truth, and they're going to need their help at some point in time. So you kind of get it twofold there.
And
you
then
start a
the guys
relationship.
talk about that.
They do.
The,
It's cool.
The police officers, I say guys, it's been across the board, but they say, hey, as we start that relationship, as we follow them through high school, or if we see them out in the town, they're like, hey, so-and-so, hey, how you doing? And it's just a good relationship, and there's great enjoyment to that.
There is. I'll tell you one of mine, and then Taylor, I'll let you take it from there. My career in sports is there's nothing to put on the wall
Go ahead
about.
and tell them about your sports.
Okay, I'm gonna start in baseball. Okay, that's the one you're thinking I was gonna talk about. I know. I can see the look on your face. Okay, so my baseball career it ended pretty quick after it started. Like in the elementary years. But I'm pretty sure now. There's an A and a B team. All right, I played in the outfield. Okay, right field. I think is where they put all the other players.
What team were you on?
The Prairie Grove Tigers.
No, which A were you on, the A or the B?
Okay, so I was on the A.
Whoa!
And I had no reason I should be on the A. Okay? I really think they did it so that Dad would sponsor the team. I'm just saying.
This is before Under Armour and all this. I'm just saying
because my hats, they said the Lewis Ford on them. You know what I mean?
Dadgummit.
And the reason I bring that up, I kind of wish I would have been on the B team so I would have got to play some more.
Yeah.
But I was on the A team. And the coaches and so on and so forth. But the reason I say that is it really drives home on, there are kids and little league teams and sponsorships and this and that these coaches are trying to help develop these kids to understand dedication and hard work and teamwork. They need sponsors because they're all volunteers. They're not getting sponsors from the big box places.
No,
from
they
nationally.
can't.
No.
They can't. I mean, the rigmarole you got to go through, and I get it at a large scale there, but they can't get the jerseys covers and the hats and the this and the that. You go around, look at your next T-ball event or your soccer deal at Kessler next time you go to, or the football, and look who's on the shirts. You know what I mean? Who's on the hats? It's the local businesses.
Always.
They're supporting those to keep them going, really for development, not just for the recognition. Do people get to see? Yeah, they do, but they're developing leaders for tomorrow through those.
That's a fun thing with those kids thinking about that, and we've always loved it and talked about it, whether it's a football camp that we get to sponsor or any little league team or a basketball crew. And it's funny because it opens the door because everyone comes in and so we kind of have an algorithm. We do. And there's some checks and balances because there's a lot of people that come in looking for money. And if you're a negative person, we generally aren't. You're like, good night. Everybody just wants money and just walking through the front door. But look at the alternate. What if they didn't?
Absolutely.
Right? And so when people are asking for it, it's so much fun because you've never smiled so much until you've seen a little kid at a little league game. But then later he's running around with his friends. With all three of my boys, there's some kids, and there's one kid that likes to hang out with my youngest son, and I saw him in buying a car with his dad, and I was like, hey, Davis! I was like, hey, man, you need a couple new Lewis hats.
Oh, yeah.
And so then his dad was telling me later at a baseball game, he's like, man, you got to hire that kid. He's your number one advocate because he's always holler. And I'll look up whether he's at church, and here he is with his Lewis hat just running around. Because if you can love on a youngster, then they understand you're here to help them, and it just grows, and they're your number one fan.
Yeah, that's good. That's good for sure.
Yeah, growing through the community is huge. Whenever you see anybody that's figured it out with parents, and we love it. I love it. I love seeing a kid come in and be passionate about something because we remember that growing up. You remember going through everything. But we love being able to support that. So whether it's any of the youth stuff of baseball, football, soccer, anything here, I love all of that. But the other fun thing we do that you get a whole lot of response from is all of our different golf tournaments. Now, we don't even play golf.
Nope.
We'll go play golf, and I'll lose more balls than I'll hit straight. But, I have a fun time about it. But I always love hearing of a story. We've had a picture that just popped up the other day, but and I believe it was one of the Washington County Sheriff's tournaments. But we were sponsoring it, and a part of it, and a cool picture that popped up on it of they took a picture because the ball landed on the windshield of the Mustang. We were at the giveaways as far as the golf
I think it was
tournaments.
a hole-in-one.
It was a hole-in-one on the windshield.
It was.
Yes, but it was a hole-in-one sponsor.
It was a hole-in-one. They were supposed to hit it in the tee hole, and they were
landed it on the windshield.
What do you mean it just hit the windshield?
No, she planted in the windshield. So she hole-in-one on the windshield.
So the golf ball hit the windshield,
stuck in it. We had to figure out something cool
within
to do.
hole-in-one, though. We sponsor a bunch of those because it's a lot of fun. All the local things. I think 3 or 4 different cars that we've been able to give away.
In local,
we have.
We had field goal kicking contest.
Had a truck
and local guy from Farmington kicked the field goal on that.
Yeah, we've given away a couple different Mustangs.
That have been huge. I mean, and these are local people pouring back into the local community that get to win these things, like factual, real deal, winning these vehicles and taking them. So that's so much fun to see. The other side of it, love in the schools. This started with Fayetteville, but we all love football, love being a part of it. It has been really fun to grow over the years and be able to sponsor new fields.
Oh, that's fun.
We all went to good old Prairie Grove, best Bermuda grass that you've ever seen, and it's taken care of. It is, shout out to them this last year of getting in, but the best new AstroTurf field. AstroTurf was unheard of whenever we all went through school. It was only in collegiate fields or anything else. So that's been so fun to start with the Fayetteville, and then, it's branched to Farmington and Elkins and Prairie Grove and growing from there. That's so much fun because then I hear from people in the community that are like, hey, the new field, that's awesome because we got to put our logo on it.
That's right. And at the ground level, think about being a student athlete at that time, thinking you're about to be the next Tony Romo. Patrick Mahomes.
Michael Jordan or something.
Giving them that brand new field.
That's cool.
Makes you play
never
better.
mind our logo, but it makes you play better, makes you feel better. It's like the other day, Farmington and Elkins both went to state playoffs.
Yes.
That's so good.
And it was an opportunity that I saw. It was cold as all get out. And I remember it was like, hey, here's an opportunity to love on these kids at a young level. And I just mean, like, make them feel special, right?
Yeah.
Life's rough enough. Like, let's help them feel special. And so I called a local company, a lady that helps me out, and I said, hey, you got about 2 days. Can you make me 250 of these? And she's like, yeah, sure. And so then I called the athletic director. Was like, hey, can you help us? He's like, oh, wow, why would you do that? It's like, why not? Like, these kids. So we made beanie hats for all these players and the coaches, and they just, it's just fun to do that, right? And that's your dollar staying here, helping people out.
That's the fun part there. Let's get next. I want to talk about aid stations at races because it's not only do we support it financially, but the atmosphere and the what the image we leave in people's minds, and then after that, we're gonna just then unpack how we filter through that to help business owners that get a lot of requests. So let's talk about aid stations. What I'm talking about aid stations here. If you go to your local 5K, half marathon, you'll run by and it's the place they have water or Gatorade. That's usually what they got. Water.
That's what the race gives you to provide.
And they may have some like goo packets or some gummy bears. So when we go, now we've had to narrow down how many aid stations we do because if you haven't learned this about us yet, we're all in people. Like we're all in. We're embarrassed if we're not all in, if we go somewhere and we just barely show up. So all of us are there, all right? And we bring it all.
Yeah.
All, because we know when they come through our aid station, one, we're going to encourage them, but then two, they're going to have a small glimpse of the culture we have within the dealership out on the trail.
We get to bring it to them, and there's a couple things if we have requests. We just had a text this morning, was like, hey, would you guys like to bring your thunder to this race?
And that's what they said, wasn't it?
Yes, because they know that it is, right? And we've taken over some full events. But so then there's a couple things, if we do commit to it, it's like, okay, we get to pick which aid station it is.
Sure.
We need the most visibility to the people. We need to be able to set up, because we're talking about multiple vehicles.
Yes.
We're talking about 6 or 7 speakers, lights, a couple tents.
Yes.
And then there's some things that we asked from the race. We said, hey, we need a full rundown of all your runners with the bib numbers and their names.
Yes.
Because we're going to have microphones and we're going to shout their names out.
Oh, yeah.
So we have recognition for the people feeling special, out there sweating it out, loving on those people there. What about the food?
So the food, and Taylor's going to take over here in just a second. The food is above and beyond. It's not just the goo packets.
Necessity.
We go look for anything and everything. And we cater to everybody in the race. The elite runners at the front.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then the mid-packers. And then the people that are just out having a good time that want to enjoy it. So what all could they find when they came through one of our aid stations?
There's everything. And you're thinking, it's real healthy or anything else. No, they incorporated me, said to make sure and get some stuff that was completely off the page. So you're talking Oreos, honey buns, double-decker, oatmeal cream pies. The biggest deal from this last race we just went through? wasn't Starburst. What was the nerds? The nerd gummies or whatever that people were going nuts over. But we're talking donuts, chocolate, and you just throw them at people. If anything, they just laugh, and it's another way to share a vision of, hey, have the absolute most fun you can have no matter what you're doing. And a quick little insight, we absolutely love doing that because Matt said we get to pour over our passion from where we work at in there. And it is crazy blown speakers.
Yeah.
You've got inflatables. You've got fog machines and all this stuff.
40-foot gorillas.
all this stuff. So when you come in, the show we talked about the bib number, and we learned this through, doing some Ironmans and this and that.
Yeah.
We'll have people on walkie-talkies, and we set them up, a couple blocks away from our aid station. They'll walkie-talk back to us, hey, 684's coming in. We'll look it up on the list, and we know that's Bob.
Yeah.
We know that's Sarah. And we're like, hey, everybody welcome Sarah to the Lewis Power Aid Station.
Yep.
And they come through, and their mind is blown. It's blown.
And so why this all makes sense. Like, okay, why would you do that? It's an opportunity because we've been on the other side of it.
Yep.
We've been in that race that either had a whole lot of excitement and you remember it.
Yes.
That like, hey, Route 66, when they had the spin bikes out there. Or you've been to a race and you're like, golly, I probably should just save myself $70 and just rain for my front door. And so we get to take our culture that's an everyday, all out, all the time culture and take it somewhere else and transplant it.
Yes.
And they're just like, dang, there's those Lewis people again.
I know.
There's those Lewis people again. And so then when we finish that, like Hero Half, when we get to do that aid station, they come through us twice strategically.
I know.
And then when we take our stuff to the finish line, everyone says, those are those guys. I feel a little bit bad for the races and the race directors because there might be more rah-rah at the 9 and 11 mile mark. There is. There is at the finish line. And so we had to help them out. I was like, you need a DJ.
Yeah.
You need a timing mat so you can call these people out.
Yeah.
Because we'll bring that. And so it allows us just to bring our atmosphere so that they're like, once again, like the bar cheers just brought out this guy, and now he's hollering from the curb like, hey, buddy! And it's just fun. Like, life's too short to not have fun, and so we take our atmosphere and go out into whatever event.
That's so important to know about that we've hit, but I have to recircle back around and tell you, none of this would happen if you wrote the check. If you just wrote the check.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of buy-in. You've got to be a part of it. So you're growing your business, but none of that happens, and it's so easy.
Yep.
Writing the check is the easiest part.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
That's the easiest part. You're local, you're everything else, you're pouring back in there, but no one else does it. And being a part of it and being on the ground is what really makes a difference.
Yeah, because Ford's not writing the check.
They're not.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not seeing the big companies write the check, and some of them are, and to get their logo on the back of the shirt. and they can. I'm gonna give you this as a trader.
Okay, hit them with it.
If you use it against me, that it is what it is.
We'll do
But
better.
some people will spend large money. I'm talking 5x to 10x what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And you got on the back of the shirt, and that's all, Buster.
Good job.
Yeah, good job. Because when they're leaving there,
We're
they
the
want.
ones presenting.
Yeah, we're the presenting sponsor powered by
Yep.
because we brought the Thunder.
Yep.
And they're remembering like, oh my gosh, that aid station was so legit. The Lewis Automotive aid station. Meanwhile, large brain company just spent 5x what we did, and they didn't even recognize you.
They didn't have the impact. And I think that's a filter you need to go through as a business owner and say, before I just write all these checks, why am I writing them?
Yep.
You know what I mean? If it's just to sponsor and help out, great. But there needs to be a mix of it. And there are some checks that we write during the year, that we help, that we don't need the recognition for. We're not showing up and we're not doing. But you need to think about your team, because we also will take people out there. It's not just the three of us. We'll take people out there to kind of help get them out of their shell and how to engage and how to network. With everything on social these days and digital wise and behind the screen, the lost art of networking and actually talking to somebody and connecting to get emotions involved, where they know you, they like you, and then they can start trusting you, that art gets lost. And it's so easy, especially when you're in a situation like this where you paid to get the stage to do it, than to be able to connect.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'll tell you one of the other areas that we need to hit on real quick, because this is the flip side of it. We're kind of hitting everywhere, is that then our engagement, like with leadership in the chamber and our new conference room.
Yeah.
So intentionally, when we built our new facility, and we actually took this from Blue Cross Blue Shield, when we were looking at their conference room in their new building, it was on ground level, and it was at the front, and then they let people sign up in the community to use it. That was our goal as well. Instead of the training facility being on the second or the third floor, it was floor one, where we could use all the meetings, but then we could have local events there too. And so far, we just got done with a leadership event there with all the leadership people through the chamber in Fayetteville. They could use our facility. We got to talk, show them around, love on them, do a little branding, but then they got to use that facility to grow leaders in the area.
That empowered them to have a state-of-the-art facility, space to be proud of, that they didn't have to pay anything for, and so it allows them to have a big impact.
You bet.
And then we say, yeah, absolutely. That's a cool thing of something that we worked hard to be able to help out there.
I know we've spent a bunch of time here, but this part's important. The last part I want to give as a tip here, just to let everybody know, you're like, okay, Matt, I hear you. We get a ton. Maybe some of y'all don't get any requests. Maybe some of you get thousands of requests. I want to talk to everybody that starts getting a bunch, because we got to that stage. You got to have some filters.
Yep.
And it's pretty simple. We've got an email template that then goes out to somebody, or a hard copy. They're like, hey, we need sponsorship for this cheer deal or this or that. And it's just a small rundown. And then they have to email us back just some basic information. When's it going to take place? Approximately how many people will be there? What type of exposure do we get? And make it simple. It'll weed out a bunch of them that won't even take the time to send you an email back.
Yeah.
And if whoever you're sponsoring will not take the time to send you an email back and answer just a couple small questions, you don't have to write a book on it. They're not a good partnership for you.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
So that's important. Put that together. It's easy. Hey, if you need help with that, just reach out. We'll send you our template. You know what I mean? We're more than happy to help you there. All right, we got to go back to the fun fact quiz of the week. All right, when was Fayetteville incorporated? All right, I gave you a little insight because of Lewis Brothers Hardware there. But here's your choices. It was A, 1906, B, 1836, C, 1872, or D, 1893. We already threw A out.
What's the answer? What's it looking like?
1836, B, 1836.
189 years ago.
Wow. Fayetteville's great, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Wow.
No doubt.
It's seen it all going through there. Hey, we've dove into being in the community. We've dove in engagement in the community and so many different fun things that you get from being part of that. How does the community engagement drive success and more business? That's the most, important part that you're talking about. So going over comparing other types of marketing efforts and the differences, and how does this generate success within the business?
I think that's really important, and you got to look at it through a different lens and a different scope. is that, these races we're at, like, are we immediately going to sell a car right then? During the race, do we have a banner that says 10,000 off this or 0% there or oil changes open? No, we don't. There's different layers of marketing, and you got to think about this as a business owner. A lot of those sponsorships are just brand awareness. They're brand awareness, and it's no different than like if you're fishing, how you chum the water, you always go out there and you feed the fish. We're just getting brand awareness. So when it does come up, or we serve them an ad, or it is time for them to purchase a vehicle or get their vehicle service, they have their, oh yeah, I heard of them. Remember, they were at that event. Remember, yeah, they sponsored so-and-so's T-ball event. Or, yeah, we were just on the field the other day. Or we were in that leadership in their conference room the other day. You just create this awareness of what we call in marketing. You become more sticky.
Yep.
You become more sticky there.
Absolutely. What about, like, we have, in a small plug real quick, we finished the year well into our region as far as being number 2 in the region in EV sales and nationally ranked almost in the top 5 of electric vehicle sales. A lot of our electric vehicle sales have come from any of the events being at that we're doing what at the events with our wrapped lightning.
They were powering all the stuff. So the 7 speakers and all the lights and the fog machines. It's a really cool way that we're able to use our product to be able to do what we like to do. And then we get to show it off real world. Like, no, this isn't for sale. We're not trying to sell it to you. Just like this is how it works.
Yes, and I have people that come in from the events, whether it be a power boost or a lightning, and they're like, we got to drive it. We got to one take it and go be through the event. And then we got to see it real world of how it powered and how it went through. So being able to be in the...
So I think the biggest thing to understand there as a business, you might be thinking, okay, one, how do I measure it? If you're a data person, the KPI, well, let me go ahead and spoil you that you overly can't. Like, I mean, you can. Like, you could hand out an offer that was like, use this code HERO1/2 for an extra $500 off, or 10% off your service. So you could do that. You can measure a little bit. So let me say you can, but majority of the time you cannot. But like Matt was talking about being sticky, you're just able to be relevant. So when it's time, that when it's important to them. So don't look for immediate success off of that, but it does allow you to just be well enough in it. And another cool event that we've done is start teacher's wish list.
I was going to bring that.
So the teacher's wish list, when it's time for a new school year to come, we understand that they don't get the funding for all the supplies that they need. And so that was a cool thing for us to take local teachers that's not just sponsoring the school.
Yes.
It's not just sponsoring a grade, it's specifically that teacher. And so we're not even going to tell them that. We're just going to go in that cart. And that's something that will spend upwards of $20,000 of buying this teacher. That it's well over 150 to 200 teachers that will buy their specific items, and it just ships directly to their door. And then we do a teacher car wash.
Yes.
We'll do a teacher appreciation, and that's another bandwidth thing of like we can only do X amount because the 3 of us plus our team gets out there and hand scrubs and washes and tire shines and puts an air freshener, and it's just a full situation awareness. Like, once again, these people are different. This wasn't a one-hit wonder. This isn't this one person that shows up with a $5 oil change. Or this isn't this one person that spent a bunch of money in this area. We're not sponsoring like the Razorbacks as a whole thingamajig. We're going locally where the dollar gets to stay, where it makes sense. So when that person needs something, help automotive-wise, they're like, man, these guys just keep popping up and they continue to help us out. And so that's the local thing of why it makes sense.
I think the word there would be intentional.
Yes.
And I think when you think about who you're sponsoring or what you're doing, be intentional about it. And if you're going to do it, we've always talked about, if we're going to do it, we need to do it.
Absolutely.
We need to be involved, and it needs to be intentional. When we started that teacher wish list, our intention there was to get help to the teachers. And as we did our research, it was like if we try to funnel it through the schools or through the association, no different than the $100 I talked about at first, only certain percentage is going to go to them.
Yeah.
And it takes work and effort, so maybe sometimes we delete some so we can be more intentional in what we do with a bigger impact.
Yeah.
But I think from the marketing side, when they start talking about, hey, how does that equal business, or why are you doing that? You've got to look at marketing in these layers, And you can't just, too many people, especially small business, when you can't maybe you've only got a crew of 5 or 10, you can't step back and really look at the correct approach. You save up a little money and you throw an ad out there and you're like, hey, it didn't work. The world of marketing, it takes all of it.
Yeah.
And this local stuff, not only do you connect with people, so you grow your network, you start growing what I was talking about of this brand awareness. So then when it is time for them to do business, and I've got to reference this movie because I like talking about this movie. And if you hadn't watched it, the movie's called Focus with Will Smith in it. So this movie, they go through the same thing. They're branding, the image in front, until he gets ready to place this large bet that seems like no way anybody could ever win.
Yep.
You know, they're at a football game. Well, he predetermines the number of the jersey because all day long they've been putting that number in front of this person from the time they pick it up at the airport, so on and so forth. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. But it's the same thing. They were making brand awareness, and then when it was time to pull the withdrawal, they had done the homework. They had made the deposits.
Yep, absolutely.
So it becomes intentional when you think it's just on a whim. It's not so much on a whim.
It's not.
There's a reason that they pulled into your business versus someone else's business.
That's right. Yeah. I'll tell you one thing we have had to learn, though, and this was an awareness, and we found this really when we got into running at all the different local road races, is just because you did something or you sponsored something 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago, especially in Northwest Arkansas, doesn't mean that everybody knows today. We were caught in that rut. We've been here for 78 years, iconic of our stores right there on College, helping everybody out. And we would go to races up in Bentonville or Rogers, and these long races, hey, where do you work? Where do you live? What do you do? And the amount of people be like, well, where's the Lewis located at? What do y'all do? And it was like mind-blowing. What do you mean, what are we doing where we were located? Yes. But those were new people moving in here. And we started having to really think about that when we look at the projection of we're going to 1 million people in Northwest Arkansas. We got more people that live here now than that grew up here.
Yeah.
How you have to continually to do that because everybody's hit with so much marketing every day. You got to stay with it.
It's no different than like social media or Google. Like, in order to stay relevant and stay on the first O of Google instead of being 12 deep, you have to stay on the top of that. So don't be frustrated. Don't be aggravated. Just adapt.
Right? You just have to adapt.
Like, you have to adapt and you have to stay after it. And then just understand that you've spent the time or put the effort into it or spent the money.
Yes.
So that you can be considered as part of the conversation. But it's not a guarantee that they're coming to you and going to buy from you. You've earned the opportunity.
There it is.
But then you have to be able to then earn and tell them why it makes sense that they did come to you. Don't think because I sponsored this.
Yes.
Or that's like some of the NIL deals that other people talk about or do, then they think like I own that person. No, you own the opportunity to be able to take care of that person. So don't ever get too high and mighty on that because I sponsor this, because I do that, then that person should have to come in, have to do that. No, you get the opportunity and then you get to wow them with your overall experience and customer service and doing what you're saying and doing, follow up with the correct things.
I think that's important. I hope everybody heard what Shelby just went over there. Don't get frustrated and know your position. You don't own them. You still have a responsibility. You just got the opportunity. And number two, just because you sponsored somebody last year's group doesn't mean you have to keep doing it.
Nope.
One of the things we do and we review is how was that partnership? Not only and I'm not asking how many cars did that sell.
No, was it like two-sided?
Was it two-sided? Were they there? Did they support? Did they give us exposure? Did they do what they said they were going to do? The people around, was it who we were trying to support? And some of them we cut ties.
Yeah.
And then we reinvest, and that's okay. That's okay. So just don't get caught in that rut either.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head, and I think the biggest still to be able to come off of that is look and see in your avenue what you can really double down on and what you're passionate about outside of your business of being able to pour back into. And then you will see that multiplication factor come of, hey, the business isn't going to happen right now, but whenever they come around needing to know business, you're going to be in the area, they're going to know about you, and they're going to do business. But time to do a fun fact as far as frequently asked question. Starting with Matt, what is your favorite event each year to be involved in?
When I read this, I was like, I'm going to sound like one of those recording artists out there when they say, what's your favorite song you've ever recorded? because we do a whole lot of cool events. I'm going to tell you two. Okay. I would say the first one is our teacher event. You know, we do our teacher expo, and we're able to talk about our wish list there. We're able to give back. And the reason is because I'm passionate about, I know those teachers are pouring into the leaders for tomorrow. Absolutely. You know, that then will come work for us. And we've all been there. We had teachers, you know, in our life that helped shape us. So that's a favorite of mine. And then number two is a recent ad in the past couple of years was our Beast of Burden 24-hour event out of Mount Kessler, where it's a running and biking event. And the reason I like that one is for 24 hours, we're just hammering them with our culture and our environment. And I mean, I don't have enough time to tell you about it all, but it's amazing. Yes. That's all I got to say. It's amazing when you come in and we've hit you with 9 powered PA speakers and the subwoofers and the fog and the lights and the arch. You know, we're on the mic hammering people. It's something else.
Absolutely. Shelby, what about one of the most memorable events you've been a part of?
I would say, you know, definitely Beast of Burden's a fun one because it's you're fully committed for 24 hours. But outside of that, we did another race a couple years back that was a national race that got to be local. It was a Spartan. It was the U.S. Championship race.
That's right. For the trail race,
For the trail race. And it was right around Halloween. So we got to get some volunteers from work to come out and help us. And they know if they've been a part of it, it's a good time. If they haven't been a part of it, we kind of give them some proof. So we got to, there was a night race, a night 10K. And so we got to support this race, and we said, hey, put us in the woods. We don't want to be on the road. And it was a trail race, but there were some road spots. So we got to set up Christmas lights, blow up arch, and it was kind of the prequel before the next longer race. But so everyone was in costumes. And so then we had our same walkie-talkies, and we got to call out people's names. And in the costumes, it was a good time. And so then the next day was a longer race, a 50K. And so we kind of did the same thing over again. But Taylor was cooking quesadillas for people. Like, we brought out all the stuff. And so it was just fun. And we say that of teacher events or these races, it's because of the atmosphere. We just get to bring... Yeah. And it's not like superficial of like, man, what are you guys doing? Like, how do you get rowdy like that? It's just because that's what we do. And it's fun to be able to take what we do and then transplant it in these people. And then they're like, okay. And then people hanging out with us long enough is like, I guess that's what you guys do, you know?
You know, every once in a while when you do those things and you back up, and we all hype each other up and like, hey, you did a good job and this and that. But it's good sometimes to get that feedback. And I'll tell you, and I'll let you tell the story, is that the feedback, you know, a professional runner that came to the championship, you know, Mike Wardian, who's ran across America, all the rest of the stuff, he came through there to our aid station and then gave us a shout out on social.
No, he was fired up, and he's ran 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days and ran across America and the Appalachian Trail record. He's like, man, that was one of the best aid stations I've ever been to. And Taylor was feeding him stuff that he didn't even know what was in there, but he was fired up. He just liked the atmosphere and the excitement, and that's so much fun. We just recently did a manager's retreat where we got to take some of our managers and got to be away from work and got to expose. And it's the same thing. It was the excitement. It was the fun. It was the love that we constantly have, but it was away from work. And they're all just smiling with stories, and that was so much fun. And it was nothing, you know, like crazy off the shelf and a crazy amount of money. It was just the excitement that we're able to bring. And so we want to bring that to your event.
You bet.
You know, and so that's most memorable event would be, you know, a couple of those.
Absolutely. Hey, wrapping it up there. Great thing we went over today, going over all the ins and outs. Sponsoring local, being engaged in your community. Make sure and check us out there at lewissuperstore.com, or always checking out the previous podcast at crossroadconversationspodcast.com.
Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a like, share it with your friends and family, even visit our website, send us the questions about what you want to know, what you want to hear, tell us about the automotive industry, family business in general. Who do you want to hear from? Send them our way, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you have, but make sure you tune in next time where we bring in another guest and we talk more about the automotive industry and all the great things going on within our business.